We're told, according to Scripture, that Jesus is gone out of that cloth. It was laid over. In fact, the headcloth comes into play there because it is described as being folded and setting over to the side. Then by tradition, we're told that when the new church came along and the new believers, that there was somebody who was given responsibility to take care of that cloth for up to about 50 years or so. That was done very well, but by tradition, one of the rulers in the area wanted that cloth and was going to take it away from the keeper, and so the keeper hid it in one of the gates there in the city of Jerusalem. By tradition, for over 300 years, it was non-existent. Nobody knew where it was because the icon keeper had died, and he died with his secret. And so somewhere between 300, 400, it makes a reappearance, is taken out of the city of Jerusalem. And then we know that for our time period that it did show up in Turin, Italy. They were taking care of it, but it was still kept in secret.
Welcome back to the show. Thanks for coming on and talking about this. Everybody loves listening to you talk. You're probably one of the most requested people we get in the Discord and then the live chat. We like hearing Pastor Eric, and then some people actually, Chris has probably told you this, but some people actually watch your sermons on YouTube.
I have heard that, and let me just say thank you to all those folks out there that do that. So if you stop by Journey WC, I would appreciate it if they would just give me a shout out and say, hey, I'm here. Let me know, because I really don't hear from them. And it's just encouraging for like you guys know, when people stop by and say, hey, I was here. Oh man, that's great. So I would encourage people to do that. YouTube at Journey WC. So if they can give a stop by, I would greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, no, you are definitely popular, but the topic tonight is also popular. I remember watching about the Shroud of Turin on Unsolved Mysteries when I was a kid, and it's something that's always intrigued me, and the science behind it, as it were, has changed a lot over time. It's been discredited and proven to be false, and then there's been some flipping flopping back to the maybe it is real, all these other things, but it might be a good place to start with the history of it, how it was discovered, and then progress from there. What do you think?
Okay. Tradition says that for those who believe that, let's start from the assumption that it is the real cloth. Okay. First off, it's 14 feet long, approximately 4 feet wide. It is referred to in the Gospel of Luke, and just a little bit, one phrase in the Gospel of Luke, that the Apostle Peter saw the linens, and then in the Gospel of John, there's a little bit more detail that is given in the Gospel of John. It specifically calls them linen cloths. They were laid over to the side. We do a lot with the Shroud of Turin. Turin is a city in Italy where it is found. A specific thing in the Gospel of John talks about the headcloth, and just the other day I learned that there is another church that proclaims to have that headcloth, and I find it rather interesting that nobody talks about the headcloth, which the Bible calls out more than anything. But anyway, it's 14 feet wide, 14 feet long, where it literally went over Chris. The body, 4 feet wide. There would have been strands of torn linen that would have held it together, sort of
Can
making...
I interject
Yeah.
Can I interject a question real quick about that? So,
Mm-hmm.
like when Jesus was wrapped in cloth in the first century AD, according to Jewish tradition, like are we looking at more of like kind of like a mummy wrap of what people would kind of understand?
No.
Okay.
No. The cloth, the way that would have been done, it would have been laid out. The body would have been laid on long ways. Body would have been laid on it. Then they would have taken it around the feet and brought it back up over top. So there would have been a layer underneath and fold a layer over. There's enough there that it would have gone all the way up over his head. You would take strands of that same cloth and go all the way around it and wrap it like a bag and tie the top of those linens. About 3 or 4 of those strips would have knotted it. And then to cap it all off, you would have taken that headpiece and then you would have covered it up. But the shroud itself, that shroud is on the head, and then you're covering it up. So that becomes very important later. Yeah.
Yeah. So what we're looking at would have been a section that would have been clipped, that was laid from the top of the head, touching the head face all the way down to the feet, and that would have been laid across the body. If that makes sense what I'm describing.
Directly over top of the body. Yes.
Gotcha.
In contact with the body.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
And that will come into play later. And then, so as we're told, according to Scripture, that Jesus is gone out of that cloth. It was laid over. In fact, the head cloth comes into play there because it is described as being folded and setting over to the side. So I find that rather interesting. But that's a little detail. But we are told that the cloth is linen. Then by tradition, we're told that when the new church came along and the new believers, that there was somebody who was given responsibility to take care of that cloth. That was their lone and solo job. And for up to about 50 years or so, that was done very well. But by tradition, one of the rulers in the area wanted that cloth and was going to take it by hook or by crook away from the keeper, and so the keeper hid it in one of the gates there in the city of Jerusalem. So if you know anything about how those gates are done and how they're built, they're very wide. There's rooms actually inside of them, because when you pass through the gate, you had to go through basically like a customs kind of situation and issue for them to check out your wares or what you were bringing into the city and whatnot. And this is during the time of the Romans. And so anyway, that happened, and by tradition, for over 300 years, it was non-existent. Nobody knew where it was because the icon keeper had died, and he died with his secret with him on where that icon was kept. And so somewhere between 300, 400, it makes a reappearance, is taken out of the city of Jerusalem. Now we have Christianity. The home of Christianity is in Rome, in Italy anyway by this time. For the church, the papacy is been established there. And so they take it there, but it is kept in different places. It's actually has moved around because many people still want it. And then we know that for our time period that it did show up in Turin, Italy, at a church that was there. They were taking care of it, but it wasn't something that they brought out. It was still kept in secret, but every almost it would be about a century, they would bring it back out just to let people start bringing it out so people that would know, because it seemed not to be such a big risk thing that started going on somewhere between 1100, 1200
I was going to
AD.
say, cross notes with you?
Yeah.
Because what I have here, and we're going to get fact checked out the rear end for this.
Oh, absolutely.
But what I was able to find and dig up just from this is like a cursory Chat GPT search, which is what most people are going to go to and pull up. It has here that the first clear, and I'm all these in quotations, right? First clear historical appearance of it is in the mid 14th century, sometime around 1350 in I'm going to mispronounce this, Liry, France, Lirey, and from there it was transferred to the House of Savoy, and then from the House of Savoy eventually was moved permanently to Turin in 1578.
And that's absolutely fine, because I'm going to state right here, right out of the chute, I am not a relics person.
Yeah.
So I have some intrigue, and I've had to, over the past 3 years, do some deep diving and catching up on this myself. I am not a relics person. I am an archaeology person.
Sure. But everything that you said comes from, your understanding was from church tradition.
Yes.
Apart from accepted history.
Yes.
Okay.
Where I'm really going to pick up on it is 1978.
Cool.
And so you have all these things, and of course, one of the big things that the church did, I did a book on this back in school. I didn't write the book. I read the book called Miracles and Pilgrims. One of the worst written books I have ever read in my life. But the thing that the author kept hammering home was how, when it came to relics and icons, how much that the church used that for fundraising. And, and that would be the reason, especially starting after Renaissance, one of the reasons why they would bring out the Shroud of Turin, but very, very infrequent. But the idea was it was one of the most cherished relics, and the idea is just bringing it out, what people would pay just to get to see it, and so forth. Huge fundraiser for the church when they would break it out, and so they would keep it hidden most of the time. I do know that during those time periods, just right around the Renaissance movement and so forth, it had gone through a fire, and scientifically they were able to prove that point. I think some people even say 2 fires at places where it was being stored and kept. So it has survived those type of things also. So where we come up on this is in 1978. You have some people, we've been hearing about the Shroud. Well, let me go back to 1896. An Italian novice photographer, and everybody was a novice photographer in 1896. Okay.
Anybody written a book on this yet? No.
What's that?
Has anybody written a book on this yet?
No, strictly by word of mouth. This was, and so we're talking about glass plates and everything else. You put the square goes in. You're holding up the powder for the light. Poof, takes that. And can you imagine
exposure time as long as the life of Christ himself? Like, hold it, don't move.
Good. Like, yeah. That's a good one. Catch that mental image. Don't move. Yeah, right.
Well, that's why they said a lot of people that took, like, especially Civil War era photography. So you're talking like 1860s at this point.
Yes.
You see a lot of them that, like, they won't smile. And a lot of people said it was because they wanted to look very, like, serious, right? Like, a lot of people didn't go around smiling in their average day
one
life.
of the most famous one of those is the Kansas man and woman with the pitchfork.
Sure, but I think it also goes to, and I heard an amateur historian speak about this. He's like, photography came out of the idea where you used to sit so that somebody could artistically paint you. You can't sit with a smile on your face for 6 hours while somebody paints you. And so it's like the idea that when photography came around, the idea of smiling was like, even though it was like a lot faster, you could capture an image. People were like, well, I'm not going to sit here for 10 minutes while this guy sets up and smile the entire time, because it hadn't, like, it wasn't a concept yet. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I want people to see me as I am, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's just very interesting to me.
Yeah,
When you think
yeah.
about it from those standpoints.
And so, by the way, one of the most common photos coming out of the 1880s was of dead men in caskets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was a very common, and they weren't moving, so not a problem.
Yeah.
Touche. Hold still.
You know, so they would half prop up the caskets. These guys would be sitting in an undertaker, you know, and the guy could do all of his work and get that perfect pic. They are some of the most perfect pictures that you have during that time. You know, the casket pictures.
Yeah,
so
I'm thinking about the gang after the OK Corral.
yeah,
Right? Yeah.
yeah, that kind of
It's
stuff.
an okay photo.
And they were very corralled. Anyway,
There it is.
so you have this. So they go in and they do the photography. Now, this is actually one of the things that they don't talk about that leans to it being first century, and that is the older that it is, the greater the fade. And when you actually look at the shroud, I don't know, Chris, if you have the ability to show our audience, can you just grab an image of just the shroud? Make sure that you don't get the negative image that comes about. And that'll help our audience for today.
Brandon's all over it.
But you see all the other things that are on there. In fact, there's a perfect pattern of two things going up the side, and there's little holes, and they are symmetrically perfect. Those are actually burn holes from the fire when it was folded. So that's why when it's unfolded, those things are symmetrical going up the side, or just on the inside of the shroud. But when you look at the shroud in 1896, it's not changed too much from when it was there, and there is not an image to be seen.
Can you guys see it?
Yeah, right there, the big one.
This one,
that's right there. And that is what the fella took the picture of, and you see those 4 holes right there, and well, all those are holes. Those were caused by the one fire that it went through, and that's why they're symmetrical like that. So, in fact, if you look at it, you could see the cloth was folded,
right,
and see how it was folded.
Oh yeah, you can perfectly see the crease.
Yeah, and so when the photographer's name is Pia, I believe that's his last name. When he went to go take the picture, they said that literally, as the story goes, that's what he saw. That's what he took a picture of. So he's in a room, red light, doing the solution, getting it on the camera. And they said when he's holding it up, it's literally coming into focus, and there is a negative reverse image, and you can see a face. It was not there when he took the picture, and they said he almost dropped it, and it was a glass, you know, and to him that's a miracle.
Right.
And so he goes around, shows everybody it, tries to do everything with it, and everybody, basically he was a lawyer, lost his law practice because everybody said that he's a liar, and who would pick up a lawyer that was a liar? Boy, have times changed.
True. It's a standard now.
Yeah, if you can't lie, you're a no good lawyer.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was, and it so freaked him out. And it was 40 years before the next guy picked up the idea, can we research it again? That and they don't bring it out that often, and they are very protective of it and will not allow anybody to do it. Well, it brought out a lot of naysayers out of 1896, and for about the decade that they were showing off this picture and what the Shroud of Turin was, and wasn't going to go anywhere, And the one thought that nobody really took into consideration back then was, hey, we just got the idea of a camera. Do you think anybody knew, even if you're going to say this doesn't go all the way back to first century, okay, let's say it goes back to Renaissance. Did anybody during Renaissance know how to do a reverse negative?
Not that
I mean, you had no idea of what a reverse negative was, so why would you be able to do one? You know, and so that's one of the thoughts that people are like, man, this is pretty much amazing. I mean, it has it on it. You can only do it when you got the negative from the picture. That's the only way it would show up. I don't know how they did that. So in 1978, so that's our first. 40 years later, another fella came by, got the exact same thing. It showed up on his photograph, gave him a reverse negative, and then that's what really set the world. It was in the 1930s, I think. That's what really set the world going. Well, is it real or isn't it? Is it real? Isn't it? I mean, we had the Shroud of Turin and people arguing over it before we even had the nation of Israel returned. I mean, think about those kinds of things, right?
Yeah.
And put that into active. So in 1978, the Catholic Church finally allowed them to take a square centimeter snippet off of it, and this is where, okay, we're going to prove, does this go back to first century by carbon-14 dating, or doesn't it? And that was, they knew that little snippet was going to get destroyed. How much of it are you willing to give? That was it, was a centimeter. And because the Catholic Church was going to hook or by crook, if that's what science says, that's what we're going to do. But they were pretty sure it was going to come up that science is going to prove this is a first century piece of linen. And when they tested it, science came up that it was an early Renaissance piece of thing. And that really bummed a lot of people out. A lot of people put their faith into this thing being real, which none of us should ever put our faith into relics. That is not what faith goes into. Faith is in Jesus Christ. But there were some other people those people that wanted to come out with that were faith squelchers. That was their whole point. We want the science. We want to test that by faith, or test your faith and see if this is real. Nope, we put it down. It's not real. But out of that 1978 testing came some questions. Question number one, how did they do that? We can't do that. Do you know to this very day, the way to get that exposure on that cloth? We still don't know how they did it, and we still can't duplicate it. With all of our technology, we can't do that. That was point number one. Point number two, if they would have micro examined the fabric, they would have caught that there was a weave difference in the fabric, and the weave that they took was different than the main body weave, and in fact it is two different materials. The one that they tested is cotton, and what did the Bible record that the shroud was? Linen. You know, and both plant products, but their fibers are different. And
that is absolutely backed up by you here in the short chat GPT conversation that I had too, that some of the what's the scientific word I'm looking for, naysayers right? We're like, yes, hey, it dates back to the 14th century, most likely a forgery. And then counter evidence shows that, well, the shroud may have been repaired after one of the fires spoke of to fix the edges of it.
And let me tell you how good those nuns were. There is actually written history to why it did what it did, come out of the fire, and there is implications that there was a group of nuns that tried to restore it, and they literally, it wasn't that they just took a thread and tried to add cloth. They redid the weave and connected to the weave of the linen and continued to bring the cotton out. So in the early 2000s, they did another test. And I mean, you cannot see the difference except it changes a little color because of aging. It doesn't age the same.
Sure.
And so they were able to do another type of test that comes from it, and from the linen, and the linen does date the 1st century. Wow. But you had to make sure that you were testing the linen, not the cotton, where they tried to repair it.
So can we talk about the reliability of carbon-14 dating?
Yeah,
because I think it's kind of accepted as like scientific mainstream, like this is the most reliable method. But one of my best examples that I like to reach back to was there was a mastodon skeleton that was discovered here in North America, and they knew for a fact it was I think it was upstate New York, if I'm remembering the story correctly, and it's not been in the too distant past. I want to say like early 2000s, somewhere in there, but the chat will roast me alive if I'm wrong about any of that. But they knew for a fact, because when they found the mastodon skeleton, they knew that it was a singular skeleton, because they unearthed the entire thing and they were like, this is all one complete animal, and the way that the bones were found suggests that it was an animal that got stuck in the mud and then trapped there, and then so we know it's one animal. So it was a unique opportunity to let's test our testing dates to see how congruent our testing dates are. So they tested certain sections of the mastodon skeleton from the top of it down. And what they found was there was a massive discrepancy of, I want to say, like hundreds to thousands of years from the pieces of the skeleton that were exposed to the elements for longer as the animal died before it was eventually buried in sediment and then pushed down to the bottom of this pond. And so it's like, if you were to believe that, you're telling me its feet are 14,000 years older than its tusks? Like, come on now. So now we know for a fact that when it comes to carbon-14 dating, it's not as accurate as science would like to say that it is, but for some reason it's still venerated as like the gold standard.
Right. The cobalt though one is, a lot of people are picking it up. I told you guys in doing research for tonight, get my mind back on this. I haven't quite been on this for a little while. I was listening to a nuclear physicist, and this comes speaking about nuclear and radiation comes into huge play into the accuracy of the Shroud of Turin. But in the first part of it, he started with explaining carbon-14, which is actually carbon-12 carbon/carbon-14 dating by the process. So as he explained it, and to which my wife asked, "Are you understanding him?" It's like, yes, I get what he's doing here. So you have degradation of nuclear stuff. Okay, and I shouldn't say nuclear stuff, of atomic material. Okay, so we're going atomic here. So if you remember all your atomic, carbon is 6 on your table of elements. And so carbon-12, we're talking about a carbon that is keeping a huge carbon atom that is keeping a huge amount of protons. So when it starts degrading, its isotope starts matching with its outer shell, and it starts degrading and going down. What they do is they set carbon-12 degradation speed up to carbon-14 and its degradation speed. It's got carbon-14 has more in the outer shell, and carbon-12 is more stable, and as they degrade at the same time, it gives them the slope of the aging. Now that sounds really good. Mm-hmm. The problem is that really only works in a lab, where you can have a controlled degradation of atomic material. When you do it in other places, how much of everything around us is made up of carbon?
Yeah, everything.
Just about everything, right? Mm-hmm. It is the most abundant that we have. And so that those degradation rates are affected by the absorption rates of everything that is around the carbon. And that's one of the things that this physicist was trying to get out. He's like, if we're really going to put science to it, he said, we've got a problem. He said, do you know how much carbon in the rock or the bed of so forth, where this, if this shroud is true, where it would have been? And if there was a release of radiation that was going to degrade from carbon-14 or whatever, how much of it how much of the surrounding material affected this, because it's all carbon all around it, at least on one side. But if you would have tested the other side, just like what you said, Chris, about the animal that went down and in dirt, how much carbon's in dirt, right? And they got how many millions years of difference?
It was hundreds to thousands. I can't remember exactly.
Hundreds of thousands of years to difference?
A significant amount to say that in that time span,
that's impossible.
This entire species went extinct.
Yeah. And so here we are looking at a very highly carbon material. I mean, dried cloth. And you're looking at this highly carbon material having stone beneath it, carved out stone for a bed, stone side to the wall. We're trying to get it within 100 years of which century it is, and you're going to tell me that you're not going to have atomic degradation problem from the part of the cloth that was next to the wall to the part of the cloth that's not next to the stone wall? If you had it that way,
smoke,
I mean, yeah, it's a problem for testing.
Yeah, exactly.
No, Brandon
exposed to smoke and a fire.
Mm-hmm.
Which would speed it up too. It drives me absolutely nuts, because it's like we have a unit of weights and measures in, I believe it's the Congressional Library, right? To where it's
no, it's not in the Congressional Library. What's that building that holds the Constitution and the Library of Congress? Is that what you said?
It's a Congressional Library.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. No. That's not the building though. It's the one where you walk into. It's got the Magna Carta in the entrance. What is that building?
You continue. I will get you the answer.
Okay.
My point where I was going with the units of weights and measures is, it's like we have, so that we can like scientifically prove like this is an inch. So that the entire scientific community goes, yes,
standard. You're talking about the standards.
This is a centimeter. This is a gram.
We don't have a centimeter.
But
not our place.
but my point is, it's like for the scientific community, we have these so that you can go back to it, because to be exact, especially with mathematics, you have to be exact. And when you're dealing with time, obviously you're dealing with linear mathematics. Right?
National Archives.
Thank you. National Archive building. Yes.
Has
really the Magna Carta in the when you walk in.
But
it does, specifically the David Rubenstein Gallery, if you want to get very specific.
You would think if you're going to use a standard, and it's the gold standard of scientifically dating something, and geology is based on it, and archaeology is based on it, and like all of these different sciences like go back to it, because we want to know these things about the world that came before us. And then we're looking at it and we go, but even with this gold standard of dating something, even it, we know for a fact, is wildly
can be faulty,
thrown off by atmospheric conditions. And so it's like it just blows my mind, especially it's like when you're trying to argue with somebody about things like the historicity of the scriptures, right? For example, or here we're talking about a religious relic where they'll go back to and they're like, duh, but carbon dating says no. And you're like, duh, but carbon dating is wildly faulty. Well, how can it be? You know what I'm saying? And it just, it blows my mind.
So then what do we do as Christians when carbon dating also goes, well, yeah, if you take the right piece of cloth under the right circumstances of degradation, yes, we can put it in first century. So what, you want to rejoice and go, oh, let's use that, but it's just as, just as faulty one way to the other. You can't, it's tough to use that.
I would apply the same standard like I do when I take somebody's blood pressure. For instance, if I have somebody sit down in front of me and they pop a wildly hypertensive blood pressure, like 160 over 90, I'll be like, all right, hey.
And you look at them and they don't have cherry skin.
Right. I go, hey, chill
something's
out for a second.
Wrong.
Take 5 minutes, sit there. I'll grab my piece of paper, I'll write on it, whatever, let them chill.
Nervous.
Come back, take a second one. Okay, now it's 145 over 84. Okay, hey, chill for another 5 minutes. You know what I mean? And then I come back and I get another one and it's like 143 over 82. Okay, see, now I can compare results and I go, that's more or less correct because now I have two repetitive results.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And most unfortunately, we don't have we have widely swinging results with carbon-14 because there's only so much material that they're willing to give up on the Shroud of Turin. So then we come into other things after 1978 with that. There's a lot of people. It was a crew of 30 or 40 different scientists that were on that crew in order to test it. And there was a significant amount of ones who were like, man, you guys, there was some things that just was not scientific that was done because you were afraid that what you were going to get was going to be positive and you just didn't want it. I don't know what you guys are afraid of. How about be more scientific and truthful? So it went back in the early 2000s and started doing some of the other things. Now, computers have, mobile computers, now we have laptops and everything like that, are well more, we actually have the phones, and the phones are even better now than then, but it was the early 2000s. And with that, they have, and in some recent things, here's some conclusions that are scientific. There is, now for our audience, I'm a minister, but I'm also, I like science. And so let's be clear about the scientific method. There is no way that they can conclusively prove that was the cloth that Jesus was wearing. There is no absolute way. But the evidence is strong. Very, very strong. Evidence number one, the material on the cloth that gives, the evidence on the cloth that gives the reverse negative image is neither paint nor any other material that they can come to a conclusion that it's some other type of pigmented material. It is not paint. It is not stain. It is nothing like that.
Not dye.
It's not a dye. Yeah. Paint, stains, or dyes. It is not like that. It is also impossible, even if you just want to go to the Renaissance period, it is impossible for any human to have done it because the technology to do how that is placed on there, that image, is not known. We know that because we still don't have the knowledge on how to do it now.
The image is basically burned into the cloth of some type, right?
Radioactive. Radioactive diffusion. That's all that we know. and this brings out the next unique thing that why an artist couldn't do it. We do know because the diffusion happened so fast with so much energy, and if you remember, there was an earthquake that happened that rolled the stone away in the biblical account. It happened, first off, the speed of the nuclear diffusion happened so fast that the release of energy, by best calculations, and this is by computer calculations, was 1/10,000th of a second. And it has to be calculated because we really don't have anything that happens that quick. That's number one. Number two, when it is diffused to the linen, its depth is 1/1000th of a human hair. It does not permeate into the linen or any of the cloths that are there. It is right on top of them and not even a hair's, it's 1/1000th of a hair breadth deep into the material. That went into their calculations of how fast the radioactivity can still be measured. That's the incredible thing to me. Yeah.
Can I throw some stats on top of you? So
Okay.
1/1000th of a second, according to what you're saying.
I heard 1/10,000th, but 1/1000th. Okay. I mean,
Or whatever you said.
That's
I
mine.
said
Mine.
1/1000th of a second.
It's mind-boggling to me.
The full blink of a human eye is anywhere from all the way closed all the way open is 0.3 to 0.4 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
A camera shutter speed on average is 1/250th of a second in order to capture an image.
Yeah. Okay.
That's just
Yeah.
the
speed that, and by the way, this is computer calculation. This is not this is not a human that came up with this. They threw these statistics in, and in order for that transfer with any known amount of radioactive energy being going, could only do it because of the thickness of what is left there. In order to stay that thin on top of all of it, had to happen that fast.
Mm-hmm.
And do remember, and we do not know. This is one of the coolest parts to me. We do not know the source of that energy.
Yeah,
that was a dead body sitting in there.
I was reading, and this may help contextualize it for some of the more science-based thinkers that are listening, but that they were able to demonstrate that the linen itself showed a chemical change, right? That there was nothing superficial. So the linen itself actually changed in the process of this image coming onto it, and that there was
which is part of the radioactivity. Yeah,
correct. And that there was an Italian university that did a study using UV light. They used an ARF excimer laser, it says, and that they were able to achieve the same sort of superficial coloration on linen that looked like they used the term shroud-like, but there was a latent coloration that appeared right after the application of that sharp UV light, essentially.
Yes. The other thing that happened with it, so that not the laser, but I'm trying to think of the imaging process was. I'm trying to think of who was using the imaging process. They gave it to them for AI to go over it and to work the imaging process, and it was quantum computers, and it gave them a 3D image, which you should not be able to do on a two-dimensional plane. But they were able to get a 3D image, and here's the reason why. When the cloth is laid over the face, see how it would crumple and go around. And when you lay it flat, takes the image and does that with
Yeah.
it. The computer was able to bring it back together and give it 3D depth because it's surrounded, and the way that yours does that too, Chris.
Not mine. I have mine locked, but sometimes Brandon will do that.
And so when the quantum computer ran over the different things and where the things were, all of a sudden it brought back the depth, the actual shape, the nose, all of that kinds of stuff, the wounds that were there. It gave all the dimensional things. We even know they were able to make a mannequin off of that dimensional thing. And we even know that due to rigor mortis and the way that they prepped the body, that one leg was actually cocked up when he died, and all of that stuff happened. And the image that is left on that cloth shows it. Shows the thickness of his body, shows the thinness of his skin, and the type of health and everything that he is in. It does all that kinds of stuff. And one of the other things that happened due to the radiation is that it left a color code in order to show the depth in the 3D imaging. So where it was actually touching the skin is much darker, where it may have been held up and went away from the skin, it lightens up, which is another thing that there was no artistic technique for showing that back then. There's no art that comes out of Renaissance where you can get that type of 3D depth technique just by doing coloration and going deeper in the colors. So it's basically with shadowing. And
that's really interesting too, because some of the greatest artists in all of history
are during that time.
Are Renaissance. I mean,
Yeah.
you're looking at Michelangelo and Da Vinci, and of course.
Yeah, and
So-
nobody did that. No, there is no painting nowhere that does that in order to get a 3D dimension by using shading and so forth. The technique was not known. It's never there. So you have all these different facts, and each one of them keeps pointing to the uniqueness of the cloth. But how do you prove it was actually the cloth? You see what I'm saying? I mean, man, I would love for it to be, so just so that you say that you have that. But I'm all about the science, and if the science can't go, yeah, that was on Jesus' body. And check this out: there are blood stains on it, and we have run blood tests. And whoever was underneath that shroud is AB. I find that to be significant, very significant.
To your point, that style that you were talking about with shading and contouring with art is typically attributed to the Baroque period, which is about the 1600s is when they credit that with beginning. And so just to your point, like that would be post-Renaissance. That style, like an artist like Caravaggio, who is very well known for his ability to paint depth and contour and all of those things, is not Renaissance. You know, so
Yeah,
anyway, that to your point, Baroque.
That
is what
style, that style hadn't come in yet, and so it's like, wow. And then again, the technique of a reverse negative. Well, nobody even, until a camera is made, what's a reverse negative? I have no idea.
Right.
So you just
You're saying
got
about the
all
blood type, though.
the blood
Yeah.
type. What's that?
You were saying about the blood type, though. I don't want to lose that. Yeah.
AB, which means you have the antigens for A and B. You're not an O type, which means you don't need those antigens. Your blood type. Which way is it, Chris? You have them or you don't have them when you're AB.
For the blood type that you have the antigens for that. So if you're A, you have anti-A antigens.
Okay, and he is AB. So the only two
He has both
antigens
A
that we
and
have,
B antigens. Yeah.
he had them both.
Yep.
And I find that to be significant because Christ died for all. Okay, so he's going to need to have that which it doesn't apply to all. The universal donor is O positive, O negative, O neg. Okay, and everybody can receive that. But if you need to be able to kill off the things in your body that will protect you, you need to have the antigens for A and B. And that's what he had. The most rarest blood, by the way, on the planet.
Did he have an
interesting
RH factor?
symmetry?
They did not tell me what the RH factor was. I hadn't seen anybody report on that.
Factor.
That's the positive or negative on the end.
Yeah, RH.
What I just looked up said that it was what they found in the 1980s was AB. It did not indicate if it was positive or negative.
Right. I hadn't. I hadn't found anybody report on it
because everybody has
keep
an
looking.
RH factor.
Yeah, they just didn't report on it.
Nobody.
I agree with you. Everybody has to have it.
Positive. Yeah.
And the other thing could be that RH might be because of the degradation of the sample, that they maybe couldn't get one. I don't know. I just know that all the stuff, I was kind of curious. I have never found a report on what that is.
They said it says that the study they conducted where they were trying to identify the blood type was too inconclusive to determine the rhesus factor, whether negative or
there
positive.
It is. Okay, so that's why they don't have one. Which again, we're back to age, and there's factors in this thing about its age, and all the factors point to that it's a first century piece of material. And so you have all of that, and the AI 3D imaging, and what I find, there is an AI image that is out there from the still images that somebody has used that would said, this is what Christ looked like. Could you, Chris, by any chance, could you dig up any of the modern pictures? They've just been within the past couple of months that people have been working on this, and it's because they've turned AI loose on it. But remember, AI is working off of quantum computers, and the images that the quantum computers were able to come up with because of the depth factor of having the cloth that wrapped around.
Now, Brandon's doing the production stuff tonight.
Okay. I'm sorry.
No. But while he's doing that, can you talk about you had mentioned earlier that the wounds were visible in the image. Can you talk about some of the wounds that they were able to actually identify from the still negatives that they took?
Yes.
Sorry, the photo negatives that they took.
Yes. Well, not from the original photo negatives. This more comes from the images that they have been using with AI. Their AI, local AI and quantum computer, what do you want to call it, work, has identified the cat of nine tails, the flogging. It is on his chest as well as the part of the shroud that was on his back. Very easily identified. There, on one part of the cloth that was touching his hand, there is one of the nail prints is recorded.
Was it on the hand or was it in the wrist? Because
it was in the wrist.
Is up here?
That's why, because the cloth got it and it was in the wrist, and I believe it was his, if I remember right, his left.
So there are several recreations here. So this one, the biggest image here is one that I've seen before. There is this one as well. And that's the new one off of AI, the one that you have up there right now. This one is here too, but this one.
Yeah, in the second row, there's two of them. Second row, third row. Second row, second image in, and the third row, first image in. That is the sculptor that they were able to make from the AI that was there, and
like
it carries all the
with
stuff.
The shroud.
That is the 3D image of the ones. If you were to have that and could go around, matter of fact, you can almost see it from right there, the back of the wrist, on the left hand. Yeah, I was right. Correct. It was on the left hand where the one nail print is.
Wow, you weren't kidding. His legs were still almost in a 45-degree bent.
You can see
Yes.
the nail entry wound, what looks like it on the left foot.
On
here, too,
the
that
foot.
image.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me see. I'm going to kill the screen and see if I can find one of the hand that's like more focused on it.
All right.
Now,
Just
I think it's significant, Dad, to talk about. Obviously, not every person that was crucified, according to the Roman tradition, was also flogged. Was also they were able to see wounds on the head consistent with like what would be thorns.
Yeah,
or
there's
something
the
driven into the head. Right.
Oh, it's on his right one. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
remember,
what
it's
this.
a photo. It's a reverse image.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah. You're absolutely right. But the greatest amount of blood that was on the cloth is actually from one of the head wounds, from the crown of thorns. That had one of the. If
here.
you look, yep, there it is in the image. So yeah, and again, when you see it flattened out like that, that's taking the cloth flat like it is on the left.
That's incredible.
Yeah, but this is where quantum computing has come in and was able to lay all of that into the 3D images. And so every wound, everything that is there coincides with the story of his death, okay, of his crucifixion. The head wounds from the crown of thorns, the nail wounds from being nailed to the cross, the flogging wounds from the cat of nine tails that we were told that had happened to him. The description and everything, the evidence it's there.
Something I just noticed about those photos that I had never considered before. Brandon, was like one of the random ones because it had it showed up and it had all the bones of the wrist labeled so you could see them. I always assumed that they would have driven the nail between, this would have been like your, obviously your radius.
The ulna and the radius.
And the ulna, so that way the wrist would grab the nail and it wouldn't pull through. But according to that wound where they have it, they're literally driving it into the wrist, which would completely, it would destroy all the nerves in your hand, shatter the bones in your wrist, which, like here, you could drive a spike and it would be painful, but that's all soft tissue.
Right.
Here, if you blow out all these bones and go through it, that just makes it that much more excruciating, and now your hand is forever wilted and will never work again.
Right.
Because of destroying all the nerves that pass through there.
Right.
And
Now the other thing to remember,
I never noticed that before.
and if you were to go right underneath all carpals, metacarpals, what was it?
Carpals are the
Your
first one.
carpals. If you were to go underneath and go through the ulna and the radius, what are you going to hit, Chris?
You're going to hit the radial artery, which is
Right, and you'll bleed out. That is not the point.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's why they go up higher. And then when you go through, it would be dumb luck, perchance. I hate using the word luck. It would be perchance that you would actually put that spike through a bone. The bones would split aside. Now everybody's like, what's the big deal with that?
It displaces
Because
all
there
of
is a
the nerves and everything.
there
And
is
the
a
tendons.
prophecy, and the prophecy says not one bone will be broken.
That's true. Yeah, I forgot about that.
And so yes, you can still put it through there, tear up all the metacarpals, and you would, but not break a bone.
No, but it would still push those bones
Oh,
into the nerves. Destroy
exactly
all
what
that
you
soft
said
tissue.
is exactly right. The hand would just go, "Roop," and you're done. You're done. So there you go. Putting all
And
the science,
top of the foot the same way too. You would get foot
exactly. It would just drop. You wouldn't have that, and the pain. Oh my
Which
gosh.
then I never even considered, because crucifixion, you die by slow asphyxiation because you can't breathe in as your body
That's their
collapses
point.
on your chest.
That's the point.
If you get instant foot drop from displacing the navicular bone away and driving a spike through there, and all those nerves go, and you get foot drop, standing up on the heel of a foot that doesn't have any ability to articulate, you can't raise your foot anymore. If you think about standing on your heel, you're naturally going to dorsal flex your toes to stand. But
Yes.
if you wouldn't have been able to do that because of foot drop, you're literally pushing up on what would feel like just the bottom of your leg, which would then just cause lightning pain
to go all the way up.
As those nerves are inflamed, you would get that instant, hit your funny bone, pinky goes numb. It would be like that all throughout your legs the entire time as that nerve pain goes up and down. I didn't even think about this stuff until just now, because I haven't.
So what is the
considered-
most common form of death by crucifixion?
It was suffocation.
Asphyxiation, yes.
Yeah.
Right. But Jesus did not die of asphyxiation. He died of a broken heart. How do we know that? He had either a ruptured aortic or ventricle, because when they finally went to go kill him, again, prophecy, legs are not broken. They went to go break his legs. That's why they broke the legs, so all the guys pushing up would quit breathing and basically had nothing to hold themselves up, and couldn't breathe the blood, the stuff that would be pooling down towards their lungs, and they couldn't lift themselves up to breathe. I mean, the Romans they considered it an art on how to torture, kill somebody. Okay, that was their thing. And here we are. And so they went to Christ and went to go break his legs. They thought, he's already dead. We'll make sure. So the guy runs the spear up into his side, and it came forth as blood and water. Chris, do you remember how long it takes for the plasma to separate from the blood?
Not very long, actually. So long as the blood stays at body temperature, the hematocrit will separate from the serum pretty daggone quickly, and that's why.
But it's a little over an hour, though, isn't it?
Oh, if you're talking in terms of hours, yeah.
But that's quick. Because the last time I was in a hospital, I can remember a doctor working a hospital. It was school. Doctor getting pretty mad because they didn't get blood back to the lab in time, and it had been sitting out on the counter, and you could literally see
the crit goes
where
down,
it was separating.
And that's why we put them in a centrifuge and you spin them, because then within 60 seconds you can spin all the cells down and separate it from the serum. But if left to do it by gravity, it takes several minutes to an hour for it to do that.
Yeah. And so Christ, when they put that in there, and the Bible records, no, they didn't break his legs, but they made sure he was dead, put a spear into him, and it was already separated. Came forth as blood and water, it says. And, this is graphic stuff, but it also tells us, it gives us the science that is on that. And so there you go. That's a lot of the stuff that is going on. And so we have the blood type. We have the mystery of how it even gets on there. And that after all these years of being faded, you go to take a picture of it, and the radiation that is still in that thing comes up as an image that can't be seen any other way. I think the timing of that until 1896 we finally get to see who Christ. 1896, and we get to see who Christ is. The next picture isn't taken until a decade before Israel even comes back to being a nation. We still have no way of duplicating what is on that cloth. When you take a genuine sample of the linen that is on it, it comes up first century. We can't duplicate it. We do know that it is radiation that it is done with, and we have no way of controlling the power of radiation that made that transfer. We can't do that. We can blow the where they believe the tomb is. We could blow the top off of that tomb with radiation if we wanted to. But how to do that onto a cloth, we can't control and do that kind of a thing. And we don't know how it's done. That's the other thing. For the topical part of it to only penetrate to 1/1000th of a hair's depth to transfer onto it. Again, we can't control that. We don't understand the speed with which it was done. It was overly humanly fast, so quick. That burst of energy, and to go along that there was a burst of energy, that it's recorded in the Gospels that there was an earthquake, or at least the ground shook when they went there. So on the cloth itself, every one of the injuries that Christ had due to the crucifixion, they are on there. They are present. From the head wound to the crown of thorns, to where the nails were put in, to being flogged with a cat of nine tails. We have everything there goes exactly along with the story of the crucifixion as we are given. We have a real to life, no way, no how to duplicate it artifact. But there is nothing there that says, I am Jesus.
Right.
Nobody signed it. And of course, if it was, that'd be the first thing that you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
But we don't have that. There's, other than the wounds and so forth, and it's so specific that they would tell you that the odds of that are to the hundreds of thousands, that cloth would fit perfectly to the story that is given to us, which, by the way, also tells us about the accuracy of the Bible. Okay?
Well, some might say, or the accuracy of the forger to the biblical narrative.
Or the accuracy of the forger, because that's where many people are going, that, it's a forgery. But you have to ask yourself this question. If I can't duplicate it,
right,
how can I have a forgery? If we have no way of making it, how can you forge it?
Well, I think that part right there where you're talking about creating it, right? The theological thought behind it is that image burst onto the linen when the resurrection happened, sort of the soul re-entering the body. So if we operate on that premise that that's what happened, you're not going to recreate it,
Right.
That's happened.
There might only be one other. If that was the case.
Yeah.
But then I would argue, and Dad probably knows where I'm going with this because he has an uncanny ability to read my brain, there might be one other Jew where that would even be possible to have.
Is that a Jew?
Lazarus, wasn't he? Lazarus come out.
Oh, okay.
But even then, Brandon, where I'm going with it is Lazarus didn't come back into his own body by his own power.
Right.
He was brought back.
Right. Different.
Right.
So
by
to your point,
by
Brandon,
another
it still stands.
Another power.
It's never happened before. So it would stand to reason if it's a singularity in history that it would be unrecreatable.
Right.
And definitely unrecreatable by that person. And you brought that out, Chris, as Jesus resurrected himself.
Right. The only thing that I could think of that would even come close that we have a more modern example of would be the ghostly shadows that were photographed
Hiroshima.
after the atomic bomb in Hiroshima. But even then, we know that it's carbon residue of people that were etched into stone and metal. And they can test it, and they're like, yeah, that's carbon of where the person was. And then through heat and radiation, like that was all that was left of them.
And as Brandon brought out, when the radiation hit that, it altered the cloth, and
the linen
that
was
is
chemically changed.
And that is a radioactive pattern. It's not carbon.
Right.
That's
yeah.
That blows my mind.
The original linen. It is no longer the original linen because it is now chemically changed.
Yeah, it's been altered by the energy with whatever it was hit with. Oh, and I did hear a fella try to give an analogy of the wattage that they believe the computer came up with. It would be the same as approximately 4 lightning bolts.
Goodness.
Not even Doc and Marty could do that.
I was saying 1.21 gigawatts. Yeah.
Marty, 1.21 gigawatts. It can't be done.
Great Scott.
I mean, I would need a lightning bolt, and nobody knows where that's going to be.
Yeah.
Save the clock tower.
Yeah, and so now where are you going to get 4 lightning bolts at one time?
True. You need a couple DeLoreans.
Yeah, and then Back to the Future we go. So, it's just, so when you run through, okay, so I was on a jury one time. We were going for, the prosecuting attorney was going for a murder rap on this guy. And we had a place, but we had no way of specifically putting that guy at that place at the time of the murder. We never actually, we had what we thought was a murder weapon, but he had taken a, this was explained to us, they found all the evidence where he could have taken a bandsaw, a portable bandsaw, and cut up the murder weapon. We had filings that was exactly the kind of filings from a gun. We knew that it was a left-handed twisted gun, which actually set it apart. Because there's actually very few left-handed twist guns. But the gun the guy was killed with was a left-handed twisted gun. This guy owned 2 left-handed twisted guns, but one was missing. But we didn't actually have the murder weapon. We had shavings on his tool bench from where the exact same kind of metal that would have been in that gun was cut up with. There was a lot of things we didn't have, but we had a ton of circumstantial evidence. And the one that just nailed it was that the gun had a wooden hand grip on it. And he had thrown most of the gun away, but underneath his truck seat, when he cut up the gun, was a little thing about this big of a wooden hand grip, and his thumbprint was on the under gun side of the of the grip.
The grip.
Now, how did that thumb get there? How did the thumb grip get under his truck seat?
Yeah.
Okay. That's pretty damning evidence. But we didn't have a whole gun. We didn't have, there's so many things, and we didn't have evidence of him being at the scene. He didn't leave any evidence. What happened? He walked through the door, saw the guy, popped him 3 times, and walked out. And there was nobody around to witness it. There was, we just didn't have it. But we convicted him because there was enough circumstantial evidence that the ratio,
it's a preponderance,
odds,
right?
probability of his thumbprint being on the gun with a left-handed twist being the only gun that would satisfy the wound being there. They did find a shell casing that had to go with that, and the rim fire for the left-handed gun was exactly on the casing that he left. I mean, so it all just kept adding up. But we didn't have the murder weapon, and we didn't have evidence of him being at the site. But we were able to convict with very good confidence because of all the other evidence that we did have.
Right.
Same scenario here. I can't say exact that this cloth was on the body of Jesus. There is nothing there. I don't think there's any way that we could. But on the other side of it, the evidence is so overwhelmingly stacked that what else could it be?
It's
I had one person give the odds. I don't remember what they were, but they were impossible odds that there was another situation in history exactly like Christ's that this shroud would fit that person.
It would have to be a man of Galilean descent in the 1st century A.D.
First century, because we can prove that now.
Convicted of a crime,
suitable of death,
flogged by the Romans.
By the Romans.
Flogged, crown of thorns,
or a head wound. Yep.
That was circumferential.
Yep.
Would have had to been speared in the side.
Yep.
And none of his bones
wounds, wrist wounds, and hand wounds, feet wounds.
Yep. And no fractures.
And no fractures.
The only way that I see that you could do this is you would have to have DNA evidence of the man Jesus Christ to be able to apply to biological evidence on the shroud. That would basically be the only way to definitively say it. But the preponderance of evidence, I agree with you here, is overwhelming.
It's overwhelming, and so for that now, so here comes the spiritual boom. We don't put our faith into the Shroud of Turin. It's nice. To be honest with you, for me, I didn't become anywhere close as back in '78. I was aware of the testing. Okay, didn't mean anything to me back then. In the early 2000s, when they redid it, I was way more interested. And what I like to see is like, you know what? Chalk one up for the Christians finally. Come on, man. Everybody quit poo-pooing all over this. It's not real. It's not real. It's not real. But then when you take a step back, and for my other friends out there that are believers, it's nice to have a win. That's how I kind of feel about it. It's like, you prove that this thing is real. It's like having a win. But then when you start thinking about it, it's like, do I really want this to be the win?
Yeah. Would God let that stand? Irrefutable evidence, right? Because with that, you don't need faith in that idea.
Bam.
Concept.
Bam. Well, there you go.
I totally agree with you, Brendan. But I would also take a step back, and I would say, and I'm just thinking like a skeptic, okay, even if I can put Jesus Christ the man and tie his DNA to that shroud in a tomb in Galilee, that still doesn't say he came back from the dead. All that says is that at one point he was underneath this piece of cloth. Because the very first thing that came out in the 1st century was that they stole his body and they moved it.
Right. But the point of that energy and an unduplicatable, is that a word?
It is now.
Transference
All
to
words
it.
are made up.
Transference to it. Does that say resurrection? And at that point, even if we can prove something we can prove something miraculous happened in that cloth, you're still going to have to believe, because you should have heard the one thing I hadn't done. There was a little 14-minute thing that went under it. And the one thing that the guy refused as he was going through all the evidence of the Shroud of Turin, the one thing that he refused to say was resurrection.
See?
Refused. Absolutely refused. Could this be, in fact, he was going, could there be an ancient technology that we've lost that, a civilization actually had? And I'm thinking,
anything
dude,
but,
that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard, because if there was resurrection and people poofing and being gone, there'd be records of it from
magic
prior
technology.
Yeah.
But
even so
Mary, Dad, and the disciples, the first thing Mary says when she's at the tomb, as she's sitting there and before Jesus reveals himself to her, is, Master, please just tell me where you've taken his body. These were people that were there and heard him talk about how he was going to be raised from the dead. You're going to destroy the temple in 3 days. I will raise it again. And he told them that. He himself told his closest followers that. And when they showed up at the tomb, the first thing they were like, just tell me where you moved his body. Like, I know he said he was going to do this thing, but even they weren't ready to believe it.
So Mary goes back, and now she has the conversation with him, and he just says the one word, Mary. Whack, her eyes, Rabboni. Yeah. He called her name. She understood it. And then she goes back and meets with all the rest of them in there. And did they believe when she walked into the place? No. They still, no. And then that's where you get the famous scene with Thomas. And he's like, I will not believe until I put my fingers in the holes in his hands and until I thrust my fist into his side. And I can just imagine, and remember, it says that Jesus appeared. This is one of the funny things of the Bible, right? And he's staring at them as they're sitting on the floor, and all their faces, boom. And if he knows how to read the room, his first words are, he's standing right behind me, isn't he?
Right.
The cheesiest of comedy moments.
Oops.
Yeah.
It is.
Everybody's just like looking at him.
Like,
hey, bro.
Dude.
Bro. Yeah. He's standing right behind me, isn't he?
Yeah. I love that. So that's just good comedy right there. I mean, Jesus has got it, But
you know what they say about comedy? Timing.
And that's what was going on. So yeah, right down to the very minute. And I'll give you the last one. Check this out. So for 40 days after this, he comes in and out of their lives for 40 days, and he's teaching them, and he's doing all this. Go to Acts chapter 1. And when you read Acts chapter 1, there's, Jesus came back and he was very clear in his teaching that, I want you to go and tell and proclaim the good news that I am alive, and all those things that I had taught you, that, to be forgiven of your sins, and to find God for yourself and live for him, and all these things that I have taught you. And while he's there in Acts chapter 1, we know he's getting ready to go up, but he's with his disciples one last time. They're on the Mount of Olives, which, by the way, this specific spot is marked out. There's a little tiny cathedral built over top of it, and square wood, and it is by tradition, this is the stone Jesus was standing on when he was resurrected. But anyway, he's standing there, and one of the disciples still says to him,
when he ascended.
Ascended, what did I say?
Resurrected,
yes, ascended. Thank you for that correction. And one of the disciples still says to him, so, Master, when are you going to establish your kingdom?
Yeah. All that stuff you said was well and good. The coming back,
and you even resurrected.
Totally cool.
You've done all this stuff. A dead body walking around without any blood in it. Okay, man, I got it all. Man, this is great. When are you going to establish your kingdom?
Hey, Jesus. But the Romans, though.
What about them? And and I love how Jesus deals with it. If Luke's writing is really accurate, which we believe Luke to have been there during his ascension, he wasn't there for the stuff in the gospel, but he was there for the book of Acts. And Lord, when are you going to do that? And Jesus is like, it's not for you to know. Now, listen, I got something I want you to do. And it's just like he ignores him.
Yeah, basically.
Right.
It's a world-class pitch
Dumb
right
question.
there.
Dumb
Fake
question.
news.
Absolutely. And so, yeah, it's like,
I was wondering
how much?
I was wondering if you could do a thing as we're wrapping up this topic before we pivot to anything else. This is going to be the last episode that we drop, obviously, before Christmas.
Okay.
And so we've talked a lot about the crucifixion and the resurrection. And this is a total pastor question, but I have complete and total confidence in you because I know your ability to soliloquy and sermon on the spot is great. But being that this is the last episode that's going to come out before Christmas and everything we've talked about is the crucifixion, which leads into Easter, can you tie the significance of the shroud back to the season that we're getting ready to go through?
About faith, one of the things that is we don't look at really often, I'm not big into numerology either, but I find it very significant that you have Father, Son, and Spirit, and in Jesus's course of life with the Trinity and with the number 3, that there are 3 dispensations in Jesus's life that makes him very significant: the birth, the crucifixion, and the resurrection. And those 3 things make Jesus. He had to come in order to make any of it work. So that's significant. He had to die in order to make his life work. But he had to be resurrected in order to make his life work. You can't take any of the 2 without the third. His life loses its significance. And so the idea that we come to this time of the year and there's going to be those people, Jesus was not born on December 25th, and it's like, yeah, I know, duh. Cyrenius took his counting of people, his census, he took it in the springtime. Yeah, I know that. That's the whole reason why he went back. But we're talking about the newness of life, and so we celebrate Jesus' birthday just after winter solstice. We're not pagan. We're not celebrating winter solstice. We're celebrating that the King of the world, the Creator himself, came to be a part of what we do. But he had to come. That's the first leg of the journey. And so, yeah, we talked about the crucifixion, the resurrection, but you can't take any without taking all 3 at the same time. That was the work of the person of Jesus Christ. And so at this time of the year, that gift that God gave to us, which is salvation, and the reason why we celebrate, if you're into the Advent candles and the Advent part of the season, there's basically 4 words that go along with it, and that's joy, hope, love, and peace. And it's almost so difficult to separate any of those because they're cousins. They're all related. You talk about the one, you're going to talk about the other. And when Jesus Christ came, that's what he came to bring. So we think about him being the gift, but what he brought was love, joy, hope, and peace. And in Isaiah chapter 9, when it says that for unto us a child is born, that's pretty significant. A child. Could have said a man. A man was given to us, but no, unto us a child is born. Unto us a son is given, the Son of God. And the government shall be upon his shoulders. His name shall be called Wonderful Counselor. Well, do you know what the Holy Spirit is referred to in the Bible? Counselor. Jesus said, I must leave and a counselor will come, or a comforter. So, Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, that's the Father. The Everlasting Father refers to him again, and the Prince of Peace. So in that scripture in Isaiah, the Trinity is given to us. That's when Jesus comes, that these are the gifts that he brings. He brings us closer to the Father, and since he is in the middle, he brought us closer to the Spirit. All of that came, that gift, because Jesus came. And that's why there is joy to the world, why there should be peace on earth. It's not for people who are, the peace on earth is not given to people who are out there who are evildoers and just very sinful people. But in the midst of all of that, God brings peace. There can be turmoil all around you, and you still be in peace. These are the gifts of God. And when Jesus came to earth, he brought those gifts from heaven with him to us.
See, I knew you could do it.
No, it's wonderful. I love listening.
One kind of final question that I have for you about the relic. I find it very interesting that the Catholic Church has never definitively, I guess, bestowed the title of Holy Relic on it. They've kind of been ambivalent about it. They say that it should be venerated, and it's a should strengthen your faith, but they've never actually titled it a holy relic or whatever the official title the Catholic Church has for those things is. But that being said, do you think that we are left relics like the Holy Chalice, like the Spear of Destiny, if you believe in those, or like the Shroud? Do you think that we're left with relics like that as like gifts or something to strengthen your faith? Or do you think it's more or less that God literally cannot come into contact with something without leaving, like, just by the fact that God was in contact with it, something is left behind, something has changed? If that question makes sense.
Well, it does.
I guess I'm asking about the intentionality of the Shroud. Was it left for us, or was it just a byproduct of a miracle that God performed?
You know, you're asking one of those questions that foolish people will jump in and answer.
It was intentional.
Yeah, because what you're asking me is to try to tell you what was in God's mind. Now, there's tons of people out there that will always try to tell you what God is thinking. That is the most arrogant place to be. Like, if he's God, who am I to tell you what God was thinking when he did something? I won't do that. You know, unless there's something given to us in Scripture that goes, and God was thinking, and I'll point right at it and say, hey, look, it says right there, this is what God was thinking. So there you go. I got your answer for you. For something that he doesn't speak on, for me to say, what was God thinking? I don't know. And I'm not that arrogant. I will tell you this. The cloth is here. It seems to be real. But right now, some of the greatest fake that is about ready to hit our planet is about ready to come through the Shroud of Turin.
Why do you say that?
The 3D internet AI image of Jesus talking to you is the image that comes off of the Shroud.
Really? They plugged it into the Jesus AI?
I don't know. I just saw the beginning of where they have the image. I cannot imagine that they wouldn't. Doesn't
I
it
could
make
see that.
sense?
Yeah.
The most authentic
It's like an
possible
avatar.
picture.
Yeah, FaceTime with Jesus.
Right. And so now, the next time, the next thing that we have, you told me about it, Chris. I was unaware of it, is AI time with Jesus. You can actually
churches
talk
are
with him.
using it.
They are.
Oh, seriously?
Yes.
Okay. I don't understand why they wouldn't use the most authentic picture that we can possibly make of Jesus to our understanding. So I would assume that would be the one that they would use. I don't think they'd use the European Jesus, do you?
Yeah, I could see somebody in the process of creating FaceTime with Jesus or whatever being like, oh, let's use this because it seems to be the most authentic, right? And then just like
Right.
anything else, there's
Right.
going to be people trying to capture that as well and use it as a way to make money who aren't going to do that because they want it to be different than the other one. And maybe somebody trademarks that image, like, I don't know, just
Yeah,
thinking
there was a
about
certain
how-
guy who did it. I heard him talk and talk about the process. There was 5 or 6 stages to work with AI to get it to the place where it would do that. Where we're getting ready to take AI, I mean, right here in Wisconsin, northeast of Milwaukee, out towards Lake Michigan, there is a campus of 4 buildings that is going up in order to house one server on 10 acres.
Data center.
It's getting ready to go online 2026. Yeah, it's coming up, getting ready to go online.
Is it on the lake, like hoping to use hydroelectric power for it? Because the power usage for those is a big problem. Just curious.
Right, it has to have its own power plant. And
Cooling
what
too, right?
I heard is that what they were hoping to do is go to miniature power plants. So the last couple of nuclear subs from the government,
Yeah, they're using SMRs, small modular reactors is what they're called. Yeah.
okay, is what they were planning. And what I didn't know is if it was going to be sufficient to just have one, or if they were actually going to need 2, and would one be a backup. Then and so I don't know if being on the lake was just for is for hydroelectric or for the water cooler, because they have to be on lakes or
Right.
large bodies of water too.
Yeah, it's constant presence of water, moving water at that, right?
Right, and it's right on Lake Michigan. I mean, it's right on Lake Michigan.
That's got to be there's got to be a thought process involved in that. Using
Sure.
the lake as a mechanism for something would be my guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and I've gotten this. The buildings were up. You couldn't see the work that was going on inside, and they were just kind of showing you around with the drone, and they were just really proud that they've got this thing getting ready to go, and blah blah blah. And I'm just like, no, man.
You can't tell me, again, looking at it through a religious lens, that the devil isn't drooling at the
Oh, yeah.
prospect of being able to put his words in Jesus's mouth with Jesus's face on a screen.
That is the
Sure.
biggest deception. Yeah.
Sure. You want me to start with one that we already swallowed, hook, line, and sinker?
Yeah.
Lucifer.
I love when you get on this bone.
Chew away.
Okay, Lucifer means son of the morning. Well, why do we call the devil Lucifer? Because the only place in the Bible where son of the morning appears is one of Jesus's names. Morning star, son of the morning. It's it depends on how you translate it, but it's the same thing. So
Library of
wouldn't
Congress, Congressional Library.
yeah, I've heard that somewhere before. Wouldn't it just be like him to go, yeah, give me that name. I'll take Jesus's name.
Right.
It makes perfect sense to me. So, I mean, it has taken me the past 4 years to kind of get that out of my vocab, because let's say it's true, let's say it's not true. I don't know which one that it happens with. I just know that during the translation of the King James Bible, that's something that was attributed to Satan. I do know the Bible and Jesus himself calls him Satan, and Jesus never calls him Lucifer. So I'm going to kind of take if I'm going to err, I'm going to err on that side of it. Because that's how great of deception that he is. And when you think about the things that the world is going to come to, well, he's going to love it if that's the case. If you're calling him, call me Lucifer. Oh, fine. I'll take Jesus' title.
Do not correct him.
100%.
There you go. So, that's a little one. There's tons. And, of course, these data centers operating everything and the different things that I was just doing some research on quantum computing the other day. Sure. And what I did not know is that the reason, I've been hearing about it for a long time. Mm-hmm. Decades I've been hearing about quantum computing. Yep. And kind of thought it fell off because I haven't heard, or I thought maybe there might have been some kind of merger between AI and quantum computing. That's not the case. And this thing that I heard the other night, and I was just listening, and I was getting lost. Now, that's not one of my areas. But that's
some high level talk for sure.
The best that I
less than 100 people on Earth that could sit here and talk ad nauseum about quantum computing and be accurate in the way that you would need.
Yeah. So I'm trying to learn, but the one thing that I caught, why it has been so long, is that quantum computing, they could not stabilize the quantum.
They're called qubits.
Qubits. Yeah, couldn't stabilize them, and of course the guy said, but now we can, really? and it is exploding. And not only that, in the stabilization, we have been able to move it into create more qubits, and the more qubits that we can create, not only does it stay stable, but it seems to heal itself, creating even more stable situation.
Well, and then when you consider what a qubit does in the process of entanglement itself, this sort of like, if you will call it this, right? So bear with my elementary understanding of this, but entanglement and the communication between what's going on in these qubits and wherever, right? Wherever is important here. That information is being transferred. Okay, right. Existing in these states in their entanglement
at high rates. At high rates,
they don't know.
Right?
They have no idea where it's coming from, which is wild in a way. It's like a crystal ball, sort of, right? And this and I know that again, this is a very rudimentary way of explaining.
Oh, you're above me. You're above me. I'm just learning.
Yeah, that adds to the eeriness of the information, right? And what entanglement is essentially, it's like Schrodinger's knowledge almost. Like, it's where is that coming from? They don't know, and it will, and it's they've noticed too that, I guess, again, to keep with the word communication, that as they're communicating and transferring information, that whatever's on the other side sort of has a personality. And that sounds odd to say because, that's almost like anthropomorphic, but that is the description.
Right. And see, that exceeds the problem with AI. The person that I was trying to learn off of as they were going through this video they used this term, it's almost spiritual.
Correct.
Yeah, you're talking about something that's generative versus just regurgitating information that is collated and analyzed and spit back out.
And there's where it leaves AI. I can't get anybody to understand that. I don't care what the algorithm is that you write for it. Listen to my words, that you write for it.
Yeah.
AI is still and cannot get past being strictly programmable, and basically only takes on the program that it is given, even in algorithms. Even if you want to tell me that it can learn, great. It still can only learn what you program it to learn.
Well, when you said spiritual, that's 100% right. And to take this
But what? Yeah.
concept of entanglement here. So these particles that are entangled, right? You know the origin particle, right? If you're in a laboratory, but wherever this other one is, you have no idea, right? In time and space, right? You have no clue where it's coming from. You don't know where it exists, how it exists. You know, you just know that those states are entangled. They are relative states. And that's why it is spiritual. Again, like spirituality sort of invites the concept of personality, right? And these sort of anthropomorphic attributes that you would give something like
attributes, characteristics.
Exactly.
I mean, these are the kinds of words.
Well, and then I fail to remember the name of the experiment, but there's a experiment that was done on the way like particles pass through matter, and then they will actually.
You're talking about dark particles or dark matter?
No, what it is when they know they're being observed, they'll change their behavior versus when they're not being observed, right? Which is really weird. It's like
electrons through the slits that they did.
Correct. Yeah. I don't remember the name of the experiment, but it's sort of like if a tree falls in the woods, does it still make a noise thing? It's like these things know they're being observed, and they change their behavior. They become unpredictable when being observed, which is really, really strange. It's sort of like they explain it as like reality becomes what it is because it is being observed. Does that make sense? Like now we're like
I totally understand what you're saying. But the thing that grabs me when you start going from physical to metaphysical, because we're talking about electronic signals, little pieces of electronic energy running down conduits and being in processors and things like that. And then when you start telling me about being able to change characteristics due to some measurable observation, and liking it unto that, the only way that you can do that is to go to the angelic core and angels versus demonic. I mean, you're out of the realm of man.
Completely.
This does, you can try to connect with a man on in his mental waves that he may send out from his mind, which, by the way, my college class, I do perfect delta waves. They put the clamps on me, sat me on the table, and they said, "Can you make delta waves?" I said, "Sure can." Closed my eyes and went to sleep. And it was a great experiment. Prof was like, "You're the first person that's fallen asleep with everybody watching them, and yes, we got good delta waves off of you." And I was like, "Yeah, you betcha." No, but you cannot. We're not. And I'm probably guessing there's somebody out there that's going, "Can we do that? Can we? If these things can communicate, can we get a direct line of?" For a lack of better term, but for illustration, can we Bluetooth with this through alpha, beta, and waves that are given off from the brain? Can we compute that way with this? I mean, quantum would lend itself way more to that than what our current computing situation would be. They've always talked about wanting to have the chip. But it would sure seem to me what I'm hearing out of quantum computing, it's well more adaptable for that kind of thing into the human nervous system. I mean, it's just and this is the kind of stuff that's scary, right?
It's terrifying. And to your point, Brandon, about the I already lost the word, but the elements being entangled.
Entanglement, yeah.
Entanglement is where it starts.
The particles being entangled with another particle when you don't know where in time and space, which is very important that you said that time and space that this other particle is existing, but they're communicating. Isn't it so funny that as human beings, we are so arrogant to think that we're influencing what's on the other side of that time-space gap? when the obvious question to me is, what's on the other side of that time-space gap that's going to start influencing us and where we are like right now in reality? Like, that is an incredibly arrogant thing to say. You're reaching out into God knows where and when, and you think you're going to be able to pass your influence onto that and exert your will on that.
So the electron test and the concept we're talking about of entanglement, like the sort of shared outcome that those entangled particles have, humans are not having an influence on that. Like, the observation of those electrons as they were passing through light, that has an effect on it. But like I said, the concept of entanglement is predicting like whatever the shared outcome of those particles is going to have, right? So like, you're not having an effect on that in the lab per se. Does that make sense? Like, you can choose how to create the pair of those particles, and then you also choose like how long they remain isolated too, because like you have all these other factors in place, like temperature and how long those qubits remain stable and stuff like that. But like, you're not controlling the outcome that comes from that entanglement. Does that make sense? Like, you're not influencing it in that. There's no intrinsic influence you have on it.
Well, that's even more scary to my point, because if you're setting something into motion that you can't control,
right? Yeah, like the atomic bomb. They're like, I don't know if this is just going to keep blowing up and we're all dead. You know?
Yeah.
That was a genuine concern they had. Yeah.
And you know, this is so cutting edge, and this philosophy is going to sound so stupid, but you don't know what you don't know. And that's really
part of the military planning process. You don't know what you don't know, and you got to plan for it.
And that's where they are in this. I mean, yeah, that's why you do the testing. We're trying to learn, but we're just on the other side of going, oh, it's stable. Mm-hmm. And then once it got stable, they did not realize what stabilization meant to this. You know, it started cooling on its own. Well, wait a minute. We couldn't hold it together because of superheat, and then just fragment, and we're done. We burned it up. It's gone. The qubit's gone.
And they require very cold environment. Yeah.
Yeah, and so, but what they found out is once they stabilized it, it did it itself.
It's terrifying.
Self-preservation.
Skynet.
Well, that's what, that's kind of the first thing. But this is not a living object. Yet,
well, they're particles.
Well, they're particles, but particles are not biological.
The building blocks.
They exist in the chemical realm. They're physical. We get all that, but it's the same. You're talking about being in the atomic realm, not the biological realm. And so, can this merge with biological sciences? We have no idea.
I think it's painfully obvious that the three of us are discussing something that we have no idea.
No idea. I'm just asking questions. I'm just learning about this, and those are the things that hit my brain. It's like
the one thing you can say definitively when you were talking about the comparison between artificial intelligence and quantum computing, but the computing power itself of quantum is way better.
Off the charts.
AI. Like what you know now as like whatever LLM you're paying for that does processing for you, quantum computing can do that at scale at a rate that you really can't even fathom, right? Think about what will change when that's harnessed, right? And like harnessed in a way that it can be repeated over and over and over again reliably, right?
Yeah.
Well, there will be no such thing as digital security. Whatever you call that.
Oh yeah, no. Like this idea, this is like a conversation now too, like, and not to go off way too in the weeds, or like people that are concerned with like decentralized currency and Bitcoin is like, well, the blockchain is supposed to be this insurpassable security measure, but quantum, right, is a threat to this, not in the state it is now, but that's a concern in these areas. It's like, well, tech is moving so fast that have we created this thing that we're putting all this dependency on that is going to become moot here quicker than we realized it would be, so there's all these other things, and again, like I'm not in that sphere enough to be like, hey, this is the entire gambit of what it is to be, for blockchain and the worry between that and quantum, but just saying like skin deep wise, like that's the idea.
Yeah, and the idea.
My understanding of quantum, right? If you were to take it back to kind of like the 1980s, it's like, oh, we got to break into the vault, and they put the code hacker machine on it, and it starts running sequences, and it's like boop, it locks in like number 1, and it's like, oh, it's a 6-digit code, and it's like bloop, and it locks in number 2, and they're like, come on, the cops are coming, whatever. Like if you put a quantum computer on that, it would be able to run every infinite number of 6-digit codes instantly and go pop, it's this one. Because I tried them all at once and I found it. Like that's the computing level that you're looking at.
The way that it was explained with what I was watching, yes, that's kind of it. And because of the amount of energy and all that stuff that it takes up, the other thing is that sustaining the qubits was very difficult. But one fact stood out to me, and I'm like, wow. And that is, once it degrades and it's gone, it has no memory.
Yes.
And I'm like, With the way that we do things now with backup on backup, and that's one of the problems, is that it moves so fast and whatever. But if it degrades, now, while it's there, kind of live, it holds it. But if it degrades, there is no memory. I'm like, wow.
I'm trying to conceptualize this thought into words. I may fail. But when I think of it that way, the feeling I get about it, like you were describing this failure to hold memory as it degrades, it's almost like you're getting the cleanest of slates that can only exist in a very specific set of criteria, and it's so pure, to use that word, right, that once it's been corrupted, it can never be that way again. And it's almost like, again, I'm trying to
sustain corruptibility. Is that?
And I think that's kind of the thought I'm trying to get out here. Again, like I'm trying to You ever had a thought and it's more of like a feeling, and you have a really hard time articulating it? Like it. What I'm trying to say is, this is almost like it. The word that also came to mind is it's almost like blasphemous in a way. Like you can't have that much purity exist in the world, like in an artificial way, because it will eventually fall apart and no longer be what it was before, I guess. I don't know if that even makes any sense, but that, again, it's just like an abstract thought I had in the moment. Yeah.
It kind of made me think.
Maybe you guys can flesh it out better.
The way that God made man, and if you look at Adam and Eve, and he said that they were very good, and we were made in the image of God, and in the image of God, he created them, and we were designed perfectly at first, but then obviously the corruption of mankind came around, and the apple and whatever, the tree of good and evil, and they ate of it, and we all call it the apple.
Right.
Let's not get too off into the weeds about why symbol was an apple. You'll take it out of it. But
you'll get some comments.
You are helping push this concept along in my head, though, with what you just said.
So,
it's almost like it's
the
original.
Can I finish and I'll turn it back over to you?
Sure.
Yeah. And where I was going with that is, because we were made in the image of God, though we were corrupted, we've been able to persist because there's enough of God in us that even in a fallen state, we've persisted this long. But what you were talking about, to something being so pure because it's derivatively made or harnessed by mankind, and you made something that was pure and perfect, that all of a sudden when it even degrades just a little bit, the wheels just come off and it just leaves. It can't persist in a corrupted state, was the idea that I heard when you were describing that.
That's kind of what I'm saying, but like the thing that you said that really kind of helped this along is, like, there was an original state of being that was ruined by sin, right? And you can never return to that ever again. Like, that's not going to happen except through salvation, right? Like, you're not going to return to that original state we were in the garden before it was ruined by sin. And that essentially, and again, this is so abstract and I have no idea if this is even right, but that we are tapping into that originality because it exists. It's just no longer attainable for us, I guess, so that it collapses on itself, so to speak. It's like you're opening the door, but it slams on you immediately. Again, very abstract. No, don't listen to me. You know what I mean? Like, it's
Well, I mean, you're dealing with a machine that can be neither good nor bad.
but
It is only
particles are the
as
things
it is
of life.
used.
Particles
You
are
know.
the things of life, and if you're dealing with particles and they're entangled in this state, and because of their entanglement, they have shared outcomes, which is why, like, what you do to one, like, it's tracking on the other, wherever that is like, there is no baser form of knowledge than that. It's like instant knowledge across space and time, right? Which is sort of omniscience in a way, right?
Yeah.
You kind of
Yeah,
get what
I-
I'm
I
like
s-
saying with that,
I
like,
see where you're going with that. It's almost human beings' ability to reach toward a state of all-knowing or omniscience, like you were saying. But because that's a divine attribute of God, that's something
Right.
that's unattainable. And so the closest that you can get to it is a few seconds of
Right.
just reaching out to touch it, kind of the Da Vinci or the Michelangelo painting. Right before then, poof, like it falls apart because it's like, no, you can't bridge that gap and
Yeah.
reach into the universal knowledge of God.
it's
kind
like
of thing.
Icarus flying too close to the sun, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Well, yeah, it's a very interesting
Anyway.
thought.
It's just
Super
very,
abstract, like you were saying,
very
but
abstract. Yeah, like, it was more of a feeling than a thought, but it was a concept my brain
Well, I
hadn't
do.
quite.
This goes into a theory of mine that I've had for a while, and I always tie it back to the Tower of Babel because it's very interesting to me that it says when they were building the tower that God looks around to whomever he's talking to, and he says, if left to their own devices, there will be nothing that is unattainable to them. And so that he comes down, obviously, he confuses their language, and then the peoples of the world at the time split off into different cultures based on their language, and they spread out and they leave the tower unfinished. And I've always thought that AI, and especially when they started doing the, like Google Translate and stuff like that with these large LLMs, that it almost represents a digital version of like what the Tower of Babel was. Because it's like as soon as you can erase language barrier of cultures, now the collective knowledge of human beings across the planet, across culture, and across time is no longer a barrier to you whatsoever. And if all the peoples of the world can come together through one language again like that, like an instant communication where language barrier doesn't matter, then aren't we close to kind of digitally rebuilding that tower and reaching up into heaven? And then to your point with the quantum computing, if we're knocking on the door of having instant universal knowledge or generative knowledge, it's like it's all kind of building up from the same digital spire that we're racing to the top of together. Whether
Yeah,
it
it
be
is.
China or us or whatever.
It is limited, obviously, to like the human mind, in control of it, right? So it's not like it is a crystal ball wherein you can ask a question and you just get an answer. It like, however it is used, and I can't speak on like how specifically it's used, but
Yeah,
it is
I
limited
was
by the
confused with
brain.
that.
It's limited by the brain. Obviously, what you're doing, it's not like you're not going to get something out of it, I guess, that you don't already have the capability to retrieve, I suppose. I don't know. Again, like we are having a conversation like way above our pay grade. I could be totally full of crap, and I'm just saying, like, this is fun to have. The one thing I have noticed through the course of this bit of the conversation is just how closely related this concept of this conversation on like abstract science sounds way similar to a conversation about philosophy. And I think that that's really neat because it is, we're talking about, these things that scientists, physicists are doing in a very metaphysical way, which of course is tied into, the existential way that we all think about life. It's just, it's cool.
And so one of the things that I use, and this is where this conversation about quantum computing kind of hits me, is because what I have always used with AI, and as I've been learning more and more about it, so forth, is that there is a philosophical principle that I operate by that I truly believe is a metaphysical law. Okay. And that is the created can never be greater than the creator.
Sure.
Now, that's because machine, that's because it was created, that's because the creator will put into the creator, and it can never rise above it. It cannot happen because everything that is given to it was given to it by the creator. How do you get past that?
Yeah, you can't fix your own imperfections, so whatever you put into it, those imperfections come intrinsically.
Go right into it.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So you can't account for all outcomes like that.
Yeah, right up until on when you say going past space and time, there are two the two cores of angelic demons and angels. They're the only thing created that can do that because they are both eternal, and so they are not locked into the same time that we are, but they are not creators of it. But they're not locked into the time. They are eternal beings, and so when it comes to time, they're not necessarily held to it. Their laws of time are different than ours. And space, they have the ability to cross back and forth from the subconscious to the conscious. And so they're probably somewhere around 3-dimension, and are able to operate within there. There's the reason why they can operate without us seeing them, but then they can step. Yeah, 5 dimensions,
height,
but they can
depth, space and time, and then
but they can step into ours so that they can be seen. We cannot step into theirs. We're limited into that, and so when you talk about something on the other side, then when you have that, there is a knowledge that they have that can supersede our knowledge. Now we'll never outdo God. But when we're the creator and there's something on the other side, now you've just introduced the possibility that if that's the consciousness that we're tapping into, if that energy, if we're able to be in that subconscious realm where the spiritual entities are, then what that computing can do is to supersede us, but we're no longer the creators. We just found a door.
Yeah,
that's all. That's all that we did. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Then that element exists. Like I said, like the entangled particles. You just know that they have a shared outcome. You don't know the other location. Yeah. You don't know where that exists. You just know
and that's what it
exist.
sounds like you're speaking of to me. Is you're speaking of that subconscious arena where in between dreams where we can be. That kind of thing. That's the only way I know to describe it. But that place right there, and time is different for those spiritual beings who are there. So there's your space and your time, and also knowledge. Knowledge is different in that area. So
it goes back to the thing we were talking about before with perception or observation, right? Like if you talk about space-time. Observation comes into play as well. Where you're looking at, your vantage point from whence you're looking at something is totally different, right? Like when you think about right. Directionally in space, like there's no such thing as like up and down, right, or left and right. Like it is literally I can't describe it. There's no up and down. There's no left and right. The way cardinally that we know direction, so like you just know that based on location and then like space time and the velocity where these like celestial bodies are moving, like you can understand that you're like looking at your vantage point. You're looking at something different than if you were looking from the other direction or whatever. But like the thing that you're talking about existing outside of like the concept of space and time, how they view us from the spiritual realm. And then thinking about those electrons that we were talking about before, they change and alter their behavior based on whether they're observed or not, right? It almost sounds like influence. And well, what is the goal of angelic beings, right? If not to influence, I don't know. I'm just saying, like,
yeah, and
conceptually,
it sounds like some of the things that you're talking about, metaphysics, astrophysics. I mean, sounds like and I know we're just talking about quantum computing, but you're talking about some philosophies and thoughts that I believe are in those fields also.
Yeah.
Do you see those as bleed over subject matters, or is there a crossover there somewhere, relationship with those thoughts?
I tend to follow Einstein's line of, I think maybe I'm misattributing, so I'm not going to say that. I read a quote one time that essentially that like the physics is the language of God. Like we're talking about the same thing, but just using two different ways to talk about it, you know?
Okay. Well, I laugh because in my realm, music is the language of God. But
yeah,
science there's a similar concept there, right?
Just because you can scientifically show how something is the way it is, right? Like you know that your heart beats, right? It uses electric pulses, right? Your heart, like you can describe this scientifically, doesn't disprove that you were created. You know, like, oh, well, we can explain this because of science. It's like, well, you're actually, to me, it's like you're just describing how it happens, but you're not describing from whence it came, right? Like those are, they don't have to be separate of one another. And I think some people get hung up on that. I don't think that they have to be at all, you know?
Right. Well, man, you just pulled that out.
Richard Feynman or Richard
Feynman. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Yep. I got you.
Yeah. The second I said Einstein, I'm like, nah, I don't think it's him. Yeah. Appreciate it.
All good.
Yeah. No, that's great.
All right, guys.
That was a good conversation. Pastor Eric, thanks again for coming on and talking. Obviously, this won't be the last time we have you on. Whatever we talk about next time will be just as interesting. This is the third episode you've done, right? I think it is. There's some significance there.
I think it's third. Third.
Yeah.
Sure.
Look at us talking about threes on the third episode, you know?
With three of us right
unintentional,
across the
right? Yeah. Well, guys, well, let me let you go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you again, and then we'll close out.
You can find us on our YouTube channel, which is at Journey WC. We run three kinds of things there. Do little short reels, and we get those out and about, and that would be great if you can connect with those. You can also be a part of our Sunday worship. We do it live and interactive, and so it'd be great if you'd stop by for that. That's also on our Journey WC YouTube channel, and our podcast is called Into the Word. Love for people to subscribe about that. The idea behind that is to see how a pastor will take a subject matter and go into the study tools, because the idea is to use the study tools for yourself and start harvesting information and follow God and not people.
I like that. I really like your short form content where the rubber meets the road. I like those a lot. Yes. I like the
we've been done away from that for a little while because we've actually had to change computers, and I couldn't make them for quite a while. I had a computer that was not being supported by Windows 10 anymore. If you guys saw when that happened?
Oh yeah, I had to deal with that.
Left the wheel underneath, dude. They ran away. They went on.
Yeah, and so we had another computer. I got the computer in, but then all of the changeovers, and do you have all your account logins, and do you have all? And it was just so maddening. And so it's going to be. We're going to be getting back into those here real soon.
From the cyber compliance side, that was a massive headache. That's all I'm going to say.
Yes, it was.
It was.
Yes, it was. So anyway, yeah, and everything's right there at Journey WC.
Yeah, heck yeah. Well, guys, please check out also our awesome sponsors there in the show notes. You can support those guys. It helps support us as well. They see, especially Honor Tribe Outdoors, you guys are helping a veteran cause, specifically combat vets, and always with Gold Star family members. So thank you to the sponsors for helping us out over here on the show, for being so awesome to us, and we will catch you on the next episode.